Hey, welcome to Off the Fence with Finch. I'm Finch, your comedic superhero with the flyest cape. Y'all see the cape on my back. Hey, be sure that you like and share this right now for those who are tuning in via YouTube or Facebook Live or wherever you're watching from. Make sure you share this and like it. Share and like. You got to do them both at the same time. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube and click on the notification bell. A lot of you guys be emailing me or Facebooking me throughout the week saying, hey, I didn't get a notification. Click on the notification bell so that you're notified each and every time we go live or anytime we drop a new video so you stay informed. All right, guys, listen, tonight is the show you guys have been waiting on. It's the money show. Everybody always wants to have a conversation with money, and it's always a conversation that it brings a lot of uncomfortable things into the picture because we don't want to exercise the truth that it relates to money. But I got some people here tonight that's going to help you guys get your asses off the fence. My first guest works with professionals and business leaders who want to increase their personal effectiveness. He is the author of the forthcoming, what I consider to be the financial Bible of sorts. It's entitled A Conversation with Money. And guess what, guys? He's here tonight to have that conversation. And we got him in the fireside chat right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome everybody's money guy, Richard Friesen.
Well, thank you, Finch. I am so delighted to be here. And I tell you, I was a little tired coming in, and I heard your voice and your upbeat message and just your optimism and delight. You just brought me up.
Well, I'm glad I got your ass off the fence tonight.
Thank you.
All right, man. So listen, you have an extraordinary book, A Conversation with Money. I got to ask before we get into what the book is about and some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. What made this relevant for you? Why did you start writing this book?
Well, I started my career in the financial markets, trading on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade, the Chicago Board of Trade and the Pacific Exchange on the floor, yelling and screaming. And then I started building my own firm. And I had a methodology for trading that just grind out singles and doubles with very low risk. We just made money. Mm-hmm. And occasionally I'd hire a trader. Didn't make money. He would get to a certain point, or she would get to a certain point. So I brought in a hypnotherapist and worked with him. And what we discovered that there were subconscious processes that were keeping them from, it was there. It was like, at that time, it was like money on trees. And one of the traders under hypnosis discovered that he loved and respected his father so much that if he made more than his father, it was a matter of disrespect. His father had worked so hard for so little that if he made it easily, it would be a denunciation of his dad's hard work. Another trader came from a long line of poverty, West Virginia kind of dirt floor poverty. Okay. And when the zeros got in his bank account, he realized that he was no longer part of his whole extended family, that he was now different. And that fear then put a cap on his income so he wouldn't be alienated. And there are more stories like that. And so I have my own story about how my own limitation, I had a limitation like this, and it was set in stone. Mm-hmm. And I had this dream that woke me up, and I realized that limitation no longer applied. Then from there, I've gone into coaching business people, entrepreneurs, and traders and hedge fund managers. And amazingly enough, the same human brain created the same dysfunctions. So after about 2,000 assessments that I've given, hundreds and hundreds of students and dozens of personal clients, there came to be a point where I could see some of the major issues. And then that's what drove me to write the book, Conversations with Money.
All right. So for those who are tuning in right now and they feel stuck financially, because everybody has been hit from all walks of life during this pandemic. And they're saying, hey, Finch, Richard, I feel very stuck. How do I get past it? Because you talk about the thing helping us with mind muscle that we're not really tapped into. So somebody that's watching and listening right now, they feel stuck financially. They're tired of their current financial struggles. What advice would you give them to get past that hurdle?
Well, it's not so much advice, because I found advice not very helpful. There are books on all that and lots of people giving advice. But what I bring to the table is what I call the golden keys. And that is, first, self-awareness. Secondly, acceptance of what you find. And then we can ask the question, now, what do I want? So it's a process of self-discovery. If I just give you advice, well, it may match, it may not, it may ring some bells here and there. But what really makes the shift in my clients is when they make self-discoveries. So what I look at are, we can talk about these if we have time, is that people don't own their own success. There's, just like the traders, there's lots of issues, and we can talk about that. We have negative and self-conscious and subconscious associations about wealth and evil and righteousness and that. So what I do is I work with people, and we redefine money as certificates of appreciation.
Okay.
So those are kind of the topics we can talk about. So pick what amuses you the most.
All right. So when you're looking at, it's obvious that you have to look at money from a different perspective. And would you say in your field, in your work, people find it difficult to have that the right conversation with money? But what is the right conversation with money?
Well, this is, money and sex, both of them, we don't really. In fact, I talked to a sexual expert who had this institute and everything like that. And he said, I think men would rather talk about sex than money. And so, if we look at it, because it represents so much. So what I do is I redefine money as certificates of appreciation. So, for example, Finch, if you said to me, hey, I want you to do some consulting, I need some help here, whatever, and we agree on a price. When I receive that money from you, I say, Finch just gave me a certificate of appreciation.
Okay.
I deliver value to you. You give me a certificate of appreciation. Now, here's the part that blows people's mind. The more certificates of appreciation that I collect, the bigger my contribution to the world.
Okay.
And if we look at today's more progressive culture and progressive politics, that flies in the face of everything.
Right.
And so that's a big reframe, and I have to spend some time with that one with my clients.
Okay. Certificates of appreciation. So that means if someone gives you less certificates, they appreciate you less. Is that correct?
Well, are you delivering value to them?
The
more value I deliver to you, Finch, the more you're willing to trade that value for certificates of appreciation. So my job is to figure out, how can I deliver the most value to Finch, his followers, and my clients? And if that's in my mind and I'm delivering value, then I can be really proud of those certificates of appreciation that I'm getting, because I know I made the world better. Now, the point of this reframe is to relieve the guilt.
Okay.
Subconsciously, a lot of people have the one pie model of the economy. Michael Moore, the filmmaker, he said it best. He said, there's a lot of money in this world, but it isn't theirs.
Okay.
So he sees it as a one pie. So that, for example, all my clients are good guys. I don't know how it happens, but I just don't attract really nasty people.
Okay.
You take one conversation with me and think, I'm out of here. But my clients are really good and they want to do good. Most of them want to be charitable and give to the world and make money and make the world a better place. But if they think, even on a subconscious level, that there's one pie, that if they're taking more of the pie, then somebody else is getting less. So what we do is we just bust that wide open and say, the more value we all create for each other, the more value there is in the world. There's no one pie. We are incredibly creative people, and we can make that pie as big as possible.
Okay. Now you have me hungry right now, Richard. I want a little pie right now. Okay.
Yeah, right. My wife, by the way, makes the best pie in the world. So
what kind of pie does she make? That's great.
Oh, just everything. Mostly it's the crust. Is it
light and buttery?
Oh yeah. Oh.
Okay. All right. So,
go ahead.
So when you're having the right conversation with money, would you say that allows you to be productive, not only in your life, but in society as well?
Yes, exactly. So we move from getting money to acquiring money. We move from them taking money from me. We look away. A lot of people look at money as a value in and of itself, or people who have the fancy cars and watches and they're showing off their wealth. For them, that means that I have a hole in my heart. I have some emptiness here, and I'm going to try to fill it with things. So if you're looking at money that way, then you have a need for an endless supply of it to prove that you're okay. But if you look at it as a certificate of appreciation and you get that by delivering value, then that makes a really big shift. Go ahead.
Now, for people who might be, I would say, struggling financially, and they're saying, okay, Richard, I hear you, but how do I move past where I am? Okay, I'm aware, and self-awareness, I think can be objective. They say, I'm aware that I'm not making enough money. So how do I go from not making enough because I'm barely getting by with not enough?
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm struggling all across the board. I don't see a way over this mountain. What would you say to them?
Well, what's interesting is, even if I look at traders and money managers, there's a struggle going on. And what you pointed out is so important. It's a survival struggle. And what happens is that we get locked into the struggle. Now, you're not going to believe this, and nobody listening to me is going to believe it, but it's happened hundreds of times with my clients, that the struggle becomes a security blanket, that the struggle itself becomes a way of life. Now, I'll bet people that you can predict in 5 years are still going to be struggling. Does that seem right?
Possibly.
Yeah. And people, even if they're struggling now, in 5 years may not be struggling, that they have a different outlook. Well, the difference between the two is that some people have this survival mechanism that keeps them locked in. And what happens is that our survival mechanisms only know if our heart is beating and we're breathing. And if those two things are happening, the survival mechanism says, we're good. I don't care about anything else. So if, in fact, like the trader I had from West Virginia, dirt poor background, his survival mechanism says, wait a minute, if you make money, we don't know what that's like. You're going to be alienated from your family. It's going to be a whole different world. So let's stay in this struggle so that we can be comfortable. And I have my own story about that. I worked for this big firm trading. We made lots of money, and I started my own trading on my own. And the first year I was really careful. I made 125,000. The next year, 150. Next year, 175. The next year, 200. And for 2 years after that, I only made $200,000 a year. And I woke up in the middle of the night in April, and this voice said, Rich, you're only worth $200,000. I sat up in bed and I looked around. My wife was still asleep. There was nobody else in the room. But I knew that that was a voice that was telling me my subconscious limitation. So I went to the exchange floor early. It wasn't even open. I sat on the concrete. I waited for the door to open, and I went and I stood in the best spot in this, these pits where they yell and scream. I stood in the best spot between two of the busiest brokers and right in front of the exchange staff and their orders. So I would be the first person to hear the orders. Well, everybody else came in. And for those of you not familiar with trading pits, you don't own a spot. They are occupied by the biggest, meanest, toughest, most capitalized person in the pit. And they do everything they can to humiliate, destroy, whatever they need to do to stay dominant. You can think of a pack of animals and there's one dominant. That's much like it is. Well, I stood in the dominant animals pit. So he came in and the exchange opened at 6:30. And at 6:29, the bell went off and he tapped me on the shoulder, as if, okay, my spot now.
Okay. I
didn't move. The whole crowd, the pit went, holy shit. I won't say, the words. And so he started pushing and shoving, and we were warned that we'd get a $10,000 fine if we got into a fight. But I just stood there. And I defended that spot. And when the bell went off, it's like I usually stood at the back of the pit and very carefully traded options. But I just went play. The pit thought Rich Friesen had gone bananas. I bought and sold every series, and I went on to make $650,000 that year.
Wow.
The difference was I had this internal limitation. So your original question is, what about people that are struggling? Well, first, as I mentioned, we look at awareness and acceptance. And once we can have that, then what we can do is ask ourselves, what do we want now? If anybody is interested, I will send them an exercise. It's called the 3-chair exercise, where you actually have a conversation with money. And I'll make that available to anybody that's interested.
Okay. So with this evaluation, what will they gather from this once they're done? Right.
So what you do, you set up 3 chairs. And one of them is your chair. You sit in it as you. So I'll say Joe, because Joe is in the book, and in the book Conversations with Money, Joe does this exercise. And in the chair opposite, we put a representation of what money is, what the most emotional symbol of money is. And then in the third chair, we're going to put a wise observer. And then what you do is you start talking to money. And for example, Joe says, money, you don't like me. You always go away. I can't keep you. You keep going through my fingers. And he really gets angry at money for not being around. So to make a long story short, he then sits in money's chair and he assumes the character of money. And he looks at Joe and he says, I really don't like you very much. You're so pissed off. So I tell the money, he says, well, where would you like your chair to be? And he moves it back several feet. Yeah, I'm not interested in Joe. So then Joe sits in the wise observer chair and he notes what was the relationship with them was like. What is the meta language? What is the deeper meaning? And then we work with that. So that's just a kind of a trick to bring out the voices in our head, to bring out those things that we're just not aware of, so we can open to the insides to what's going on. And once we do that, again, then we can ask, so now what would you like instead?
Okay. And that conversation Joe's having sounds like a conversation I had with my ex. So, you're always wondering. So when people have these, you talked earlier about being self-aware, and I can gather, because I can probably hear the people listening and watching right now saying, hey, I'm already self-aware that I don't have enough. I don't have the mindset. I don't know how to get enough, especially now. And when it's all over, they still feel stuck in that same place. And, I think sometimes, because in my lifetime, I've made a lot of money and I've also lost a lot of money. So I know what it's like to be on both sides, and I know what it's like to be struggling and living check to check and not having the answers. I think that's the part that bothers people a lot, is they know they need more income. They just don't know how to get it.
Okay, so let's take two people. And one person says, I need more money. I want more money. I don't know how to get it. I'm struggling. The world is structured against me. There's privileged people out there who got to go to expensive colleges. I never did. My dad used to beat me, and I just angry and resentful. And it's just the system and capitalism are structured against me. I want more money, and I don't know how to get it. Okay, one person. Person B. Well, this is very interesting. I'm don't have quite enough money. I'm just kind of living just barely. I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. Ooh. How can I deliver enough value to people that they would love to give me certificates of appreciation? What skills do I have? How can I start just anywhere? How can I be of service? How can I joyfully create value for other people? I don't know, but I'm going to think of it. So, Finch, of those two people, which would you bet on doing
the second person?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you say when somebody's stuck and they want more money, that in and of itself creates the cap. I want more money simply means that I want to stay in the struggle that I'm familiar with. And you know people, and your audience, I'm sure, knows friends and relatives. I have a relative who I know will never have a penny in the bank. I just know it from the day to the day they die, they won't. Their belief system is about themselves, and the struggle has become part of their life.
And that's so telling. And I think we all know people like that. And it's unfortunate, but that's how life is, because I think if you don't get out of the prison of your mind, you're never going to move forward in life, period. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So,
Richard, how can people connect with you online if they're interested in connecting with you? How can they do that?
Sure. Rich at mindmuscles.com. And that's my email address. And anybody who sends it to me, I will send them the 3-chair exercise so they can follow along. Also, the book, Conversations with Money. I'm in the final draft. Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, gave it a thumbs down on the first draft. So I've been working very hard to upgrade it. And he said, don't worry. He said, my first drafts are always terrible too. So if you want to be an editor and a commenter on the book, this is a volunteer position. There's no payment either way. But what we'll do is we'll work with you and your issues around money. You get to step into the book and see what works and doesn't work and make comments. So I'm opening this up to people who want to really get involved and are open to that awareness and want to make a contribution and add value. So Rich at mindmuscles.com, and I will set you up and we'll have a conversation. I'm just really happy to talk to people who are ready to step out of their struggle and acknowledge and own a more successful world. And this is another point, is that people who are struggling do not know how to own success. For example, if a trader comes to me, or an entrepreneur comes to me, he'll give me all his struggles and stresses and whatever. And I'll say, okay, so what would you like instead? Oh, with struggles and this and that. Okay, what would you like instead? So what I've done is I've actually created a guided visualization that helps you step into it. Until you can visualize it and your survival mechanisms are comfortable with it, your brain will not allow you to go there.
Man, thank you so much, Richard, for coming on the show, man. You've added some value. I feel like I now owe you certificates of appreciation.
Well, I really appreciate you, your upbeat, your energy, your optimism. I'm sure it is just, it's contagious. And You are adding value to a lot of people, and gosh, I really appreciate that also.
Oh, well, thank you so much, man. Well, we'll probably have to have you back again. When you anticipate the book being done and out?
Okay, we're getting the editors to go over the final copy in the next couple of weeks, so we'll see. I've got to look at different publishing offers, and then we'll go from there. But those things, they always take longer than you want.
Yeah, they do. I've been there before. I have a book right now that I'm working on called Free Agency. Same thing.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, send me a link to the draft.
I certainly will, man. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Y'all give it up for Richard. Conversations with Money. Hey, guys, when we come back, we got everybody's man about town. Kelly Cole is here with some gold tips. We'll be right back. It's Off the Fence. I'm Finch.
Yo. You're in the mix.
The world's finest, man. DJ
I have the radio on the telly.